Good evening. I'm Jennifer Acey, the Mayor of Bernards Township, and want to welcome you to this session of Understanding Bernards. We are joined here by Ryan Wallace, the head of Department of Public Works, and so we're excited to hear from him about how his organization works and the important work they do. So with that, I will turn this over to Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. As the Mayor stated, my name is Ryan Wallace. I'm the Director of Public Works here in Bernards Township. I've been with the township about 8 years and in this position almost 3. So what we're going to talk about tonight is what makes up Public Works here in Bernards Township and the services we provide and what we do for the residents. So we'll start off by taking a look at what is Public Works. So according to the American Public Works Association, Public Works is the combination of physical assets, management practices, policies, and personnel necessary for government to provide and sustain structures and services essential to the welfare and acceptable quality of life for its citizens. Now, this is a very complex, broad kind of definition. It involves government agencies at all levels, public authorities, utilities, and other entities. But here, as it applies to Bernards Township, Public Works is responsible to maintain the infrastructure and provide certain services to the residents. So next we'll take a look at the makeup of the Public Works Department here in Bernards Township. So as you can see here, we have the Director of Public Works, an administration component, and 4 operational divisions. We have the Road Division, Fleet Division, Grounds and Buildings Division. And we have a total of 39 employees within all these different divisions in Public Works, and we'll take a look at our organizational chart in a moment. But something I just wanted to touch on was that the staff in all these divisions, we have a lot of qualifications, a lot of training that we continue on a yearly basis on our job functions, safety-related training. We have staff that are certified Public Works managers, recycling coordinators, clean communities coordinators. We have an indoor air quality coordinator, underground storage tank operators. We have folks who are pesticide and fertilizer applicator trained. And then, of course, we have a vast majority of our employees also hold their commercial driver's licenses, which is another unique qualification that these folks have. So here's the organizational chart. You can see, as I said, 39 in Public Works. The administration component is a project coordinator, an administrative coordinator, an administrative assistant. There's also a Public Works supervisor who's responsible for the day-to-day operations of the 4 divisions. So in our road division, with a total of 18 employees, you can see there's a foreman, assistant foreman and crew chiefs, mid-level supervisors, and then we have equipment operators, truck drivers, and laborers. Also includes the part-time landfill attendant at Pill Hill. In our buildings division, we have a foreman and 2 building maintenance mechanics. In our fleet division, a foreman, master mechanic, and 2 mechanics. And then in our grounds division, there's a foreman with a crew chief, again, another mid-level supervisor, and 7 groundskeepers. So next, we'll take a closer look at each division up here and some of the responsibilities and jobs that they take care of. And we'll start with the largest, with the road division. So quite simply, the road division is responsible for construction, maintenance, and repair of all the public roads in Bernards Township, with the exception of the state and county roads. So that would be all the township streets. It does not include private roads, of which there are several here in town. And just as a quick explanation, state roads, it's quite simple here in town. It's the interstate highways, 287, 78, and Route 202. Those are the responsibility of the New Jersey Department of Transportation. And then Somerset County is responsible for the county roads, which are some of the main thoroughfares like Finley Avenue, Valley Road, Martinsville Road. And an easy way to determine if you're on a county road or not is they often have a county route number, which is on a blue sign with yellow lettering. So it's a 3-digit number in the 5 or 600 series. So Route 512 is Valley Road, Martinsville Road is Route 525. So that's an easy way to distinguish if you're on a county road or not while you're out and about in town. So as you can see, we have 113 miles of township streets the road department is responsible for. In addition, we have 81 miles of sidewalks, bikeways, and paths. We also have a pretty substantial drainage infrastructure in the township right-of-way and easements, which consists of over 4,000 catch basins or inlets, which are all the grates and the drains on the sides of the roads. Many, many miles of drainage pipe, 400 or more outfalls, which is simply the point where the stormwater discharges to the natural environment. So it's the end of the pipe where it discharges into a stream. And then we have multiple detention basins and culverts as part of our stormwater infrastructure too that the road division is responsible for maintaining. And then there's also thousands of signs. Every sign on the township streets, street name signs, stop signs, speed limits, all the warning signs, all responsibility of the road division. And one of the main tasks that takes up a lot of effort and time during the year is simply road maintenance, and that's maintenance of the pavement, repairs and maintenance of the actual asphalt pavement surface. So 3 of our main asphalt pavement tasks that we perform, the first is patching or milling and filling. So that's when DPW goes out or a contractor will go out and do what I call checkerboard patching on the roads, which is where we look at hazards or anything that may become a hazard. We'll mill the pavement out, so remove the top 2 inches of the asphalt, of the old asphalt, and we'll place new asphalt in its place. And these repairs are conducted annually by our road department personnel in the warm weather months. We also have the ability, since we do a lot of these repairs in-house, to make emergency repairs anytime we need throughout the year. And something we do to supplement what our own crews do is we also have utilized contractors to take care of some of our larger or more extensive repairs. Another task we take care of is crack sealing. So this is an annual preventative maintenance program. Targets roads that are typically 5 to 7 years old. We go out and fill the cracks with basically a rubberized tar type of solution. And the purpose of that is to prevent water from penetrating into the pavement, getting underneath and degrading the base or the sub-base. It could prevent some potholes from forming as the water gets in with freeze-thaw. And speaking of potholes, the next big thing we do is pothole repairs. And these are conducted all year long on a weekly, at least once a week or more basis typically, where we go out, we look through town, repair potholes. So we'll do pothole repairs in response to resident complaints or inquiries. Our staff are always looking out for where we have to do potholes as well. And then on the days where we send the pothole crew out, when they take care of what's on the list, they'll go proactively look throughout town too. Another part of the road maintenance is guide rail repair and replacement, of which we've done a lot of over the last few years. So all the guardrails on township-owned roads are responsibility of the road department. And then lastly, all curbs are township responsibility. So we do quite a bit of curb repair and replacement of Belgian block curb, concrete curb all throughout town, on the township and county roads. Another function of the road maintenance is street sweeping. Street sweeping is performed on a continuous basis during the spring, summer, and fall months, which equates to each street being swept about 3 to 4 times every year, if not more. The reason why we can't do street sweeping in the winter is because water is used for dust control, so we can't when the temperatures are below freezing. Another thing to note about street sweeping is that it is required by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection as part of the permit that the township has for operating our storm sewer system. So the state requires that every road is swept 3 times every year. So we do maintain compliance on that with our 2 street sweepers. Roadside mowing is another function of the road department's road maintenance responsibilities. As you can see, it's numerous miles that we do of roadside mowing. It's conducted to control vegetation for sight distance and safety purposes. So roadside mowing is done with a large tractor. It does sort of a rough cut. It's not a finished mower, but it's done for a functional and safety purpose. It's done to keep the vegetation off the roadway, to keep the vegetation cut down, to maintain sight lines, and it's really for the safety of the motorist as opposed to an aesthetic reason. And then additionally, there's numerous other areas that are mowed regularly during the growing season, the township properties, traffic islands, along some of the bikeways or paths, And this type of mowing is done with your traditional lawn mowing equipment, and it may be done on a more regular basis. We also are responsible for tree trimming and pruning along township roadways. And this is done to maintain an adequate height for truck traffic. So think school buses, garbage trucks, plow trucks. So the way we conduct the tree trimming is go out, take basically a height of 14 feet, 12 to 14 feet above the roadway, and kind of create a box from curb to curb, 12 to 14 feet up in the air, to keep the limbs and branches high enough to allow for that truck traffic to pass underneath. So something worthwhile noting is about road repairs. What's the difference between a road repair or a road resurfacing or reconstruction? The primary difference in burners is who's responsible for it. DPW is responsible for the repairs or the maintenance. Those are those patching or checkerboard type of repairs I mentioned earlier. A full resurfacing, which is a full road paving or reconstruction, is run through the engineering department as a capital improvement rather than a maintenance type of project. That being said, DPW and engineering do work together. Every spring, we typically sit down and establish road repair priorities, go over the capital improvements for the year. So the way DPW establishes our road repair priorities is through that coordination and input from engineering. We also track calls from residents, and we also have our own observations to help generate a running list of road repair priorities that we'll undertake every year. We'll touch on the drainage system maintenance. So as I mentioned, over 4,000 catch basins or inlets, and DPW is responsible for all the repairs on those, rebuilding and constructing them if needed. Also replacement of the grates and the curb heads to maintain compliance through the NJDEP, through our stormwater permit. We have an annual inspection and cleaning program that we have to maintain. Again, that's a requirement of our stormwater permit. So we have to inspect every one of those 4,000 inlets from the top every year. We have to inspect what's beneath the surface, 20% of those 4,000 every year. So every 5 years, every single one of those inlets has to get checked below the surface, cleaned if necessary. Any repairs need to be noted and followed up on and made. We're responsible for repairing and replacing pipes as needed. This is, again, all the things on this slide are required as part of our New Jersey DEP permit. So as we determine that there's pipe failures or pipes are deteriorating, it's something that DPW is responsible for repairing or replacing those. And we're also responsible for repairing the outfalls. Those, again, are inspected on a rotating basis. I believe it may be the same 20% every year. So the engineering department has an inspector that goes out to every single one of those outfalls that are oftentimes, well off the roadway, in the woods, and they have to generate work orders. Basically, what we see a lot of time is the head walls, which basically holds up the pipe on the end, deteriorate, or we see a lot of scour issues, which is basically when the water rushes out of the pipe so fast, it creates turbulence and will erode an area beneath the pipe, and that could undermine the head wall or the pipe. So we have to make repairs to help prevent that. And then we're also responsible for those township-owned detention basins. There are many detention basins throughout the township, many of which are owned or maintenance responsibility of different HOAs or neighborhoods or different property owners. Some are responsibility of the county, but there are several that are township responsibility, and we're responsible for inspections and maintenance on those as well. So next, we'll discuss sidewalk or path maintenance. Just like all the roads, DPW is responsible for all repairs and patching on all of our sidewalks and paths throughout town, those 81 miles that are in the public right-of-way. And something to note is this includes all sidewalks in the public right-of-way, regardless of it's on a township or a county road. They're all township maintenance responsibility. So we perform repairs and patching to the sidewalks, much like we do to the streets, especially on the asphalt sidewalks. We also do repair and patch the concrete sidewalks. We do resurface sidewalks from time to time as needed to maintain a smooth, safe walking surface. Uneven joints, this is something that we see on concrete sidewalks where you have tree roots or freeze thaw or something else where the two slabs come together and become uneven. So we have the equipment to grind those if they're within a certain tolerance and smooth them over, or we may have to, excavate and reset that slab or re-pour an entire slab. Much like the mowing on the roads, we're responsible for mowing and trimming from a safety and functional aspect over the sidewalks too, to make sure in the same manner that a truck wouldn't hit a branch on the street, that a pedestrian doesn't hit a branch walking down the sidewalk. So instead of that 12 to 14 feet box on a sidewalk, it's just a little shorter, 7 to 8 feet. And then something I'll touch on later, we're also responsible for snow removal on certain priority sidewalk routes within the township. And of course, there are some other duties of the road division, one of which is maintenance of certain township properties. The road division does the mowing and landscaping at certain township properties, mostly our facilities like town hall and the police department, the health department, the library, our DPW building, the sidewalks and parking lots at all those facilities, also our commuter lots, the downtown parking lots, and all the drainage systems associated with those properties and parking lots. And that's all the same type of drainage maintenance that we do on the roads. The road division is also responsible for operating the Pill Hill Recycling Center. So as many of you know, the Pill Hill is open every weekend throughout the year for residents to dispose of materials. So not only does the road department staff that on the weekends, but we also do quite a bit of work during the week. All the materials that got brought in, the disposal happens during the week. We haul a lot of our own containers to the different transfer stations or different processing plants depending on the material. And we also operate a large grinder to process all the vegetative waste that comes into Pill Hill. And we are able to reuse a lot of that vegetative waste on township properties, on some of the walking trails, and even provide it for residents for use at home. And lastly, we have the traffic control devices. So as I mentioned, thousands of signs. The township has an in-house sign shop, so we have folks who are able to fabricate, install, and repair signs in-house, which is great because not only does it equate to a cost savings, but if we need a sign put up quickly in an emergent nature or a specific non-standard type of sign installed, we have the ability to create those in-house. And along with the signs, the other type of traffic control device we're responsible for is maintenance of all the striping on the township roadways. The double yellow lines, stop bars, crosswalks, all those types of striping. And that about wraps it up for the road division. Next, we'll move on, take a look at the fleet division. So the 4 mechanics in the fleet division, they're responsible for maintenance of all vehicles and equipment in the township inventory. What that equates to is over 150 vehicles. Those would be passenger cars, police cars, the light duty and heavy duty trucks, the light and heavy construction equipment, front end loaders, backhoes, skid steers, and even some of the fire trucks here in town. It also happens to include over 250 pieces of small equipment. So these are all the mowers, trailers, all the handheld power equipment, weed whackers, chainsaws, leaf blowers, all that type of equipment. The fleet division also provides aid to the sewage authority and to the fire departments and first aid squad as needed. So a lot of what the fleet division does is regular service, oil changes, tires, brakes, inspections of the vehicles when they're in the garage for the regular services, coordinate state inspections, do some fabrication and welding, and then also we have repairs due to accidents, incidents, breakdowns, and also all that small equipment repair. So what happens basically, a lot of the regular service is done in-house by our own mechanics. We also have the ability to spend quite a bit of time diagnosing and troubleshooting for some of the larger repairs. We do utilize outside shops sometimes with the larger repairs due to the complexity or time constraints. As I said, we have a welding bay in the shop, so the mechanics have the ability to do some fabrication or welding on the fly, not only for the vehicles and equipment, but any other fabrication we might need as part of DPW's job, maintaining the storm sewers or the roads. The mechanics can do that. So coordinate the state inspections, so those are just the regular state inspections on all the light and medium duty vehicles. Also the heavy duty vehicles, the large trucks have to have what's called a smoke test done annually, so they coordinate that as well. And then, as I mentioned, 250 pieces of small equipment. So anything goes wrong, I'm sure a lot of folks know, sometimes weed whacker doesn't start, carburetor's clogged, all those types of things the mechanics are responsible for. So it really takes someone who can work on a wide variety of different equipment, pivot at the drop of a dime when something comes in from working on, say, a snow truck, maybe a lawnmower, back and forth. So the mechanic shop's quite busy, and it's really a vital part of what keeps the township moving behind the scenes. So next we'll discuss the grounds division. So the 9 employees of the grounds division are responsible for all the maintenance at the 10 township parks, which equates to over 2,000 acres of parkland, 200 acres of which are sports fields. That's over 32 sports fields. Also responsible for maintenance on all the sports courts, the pickleball courts, the tennis courts, paddle tennis, basketball, the hockey rink, the playgrounds at Pleasant Valley Park, Dunham Park, Rebel Hill Park, and Southern Park, all the trails and paths at all the township parks and other open space properties. Provide some assistance in operation and maintenance to the pool and the golf course. So the grounds department is not necessarily responsible for the day-to-day of the pool and golf course, but we do certain things like mow the grass at the pool, do some of the landscaping, assist with opening and closing the pool and the pool cover. We also do some work for the golf course too, tree removal, light construction, that type of thing. And including with all the parks is the grounds division is primarily responsible for all the park buildings, all the other amenities in the parks, whether that be benches, picnic shelters, bathrooms, some of the indoor pavilions, that all falls under the grounds division. And so as you can imagine, one of the primary duties of the grounds division is mowing, to mow all the fields, all the trails, all the other areas in the parks. Typically, the mowing in the parks is done on a once-a-week basis, although at certain times during the growing season, the athletic fields may need to be mowed more often than that to maintain the appropriate height for whichever sport is playing. You're also responsible for field maintenance. And what we mean by that is all the painting and the lining of all the multipurpose fields, the dragging of all the skinned baseball and softball infield surfaces, moving, setting up, maintaining the nets on all the goals, all the backstop netting and all that's the responsibility of the grounds division. And when we look at field maintenance, we look at a setup as basically any time a field is set up for a practice or a game. That could be any of the things I mentioned, the painting, the dragging, the goals. The grounds division performs thousands of those field setups every year. Something else they're responsible for is the artificial turf at Mountain Park, which you may think, artificial turf, does it really require maintenance? And yes, it does. The artificial turf, believe it or not, requires at least monthly maintenance, grooming the turf, leveling out the crumb rubber, infilling it in some areas where it might get worn away. The groomer picks up metal or other objects that may have fallen on the turf. And in addition to that, the turf at Mountain Park needs to be tested annually, impact testing to make sure it's safe for play, for use. And then, just like anything else, the turf itself needs maintenance. Sometimes the seams come apart and they need to be stitched back together. So the grounds division, while they do their grooming, they inspect the fields, they work on coordinating the repairs with the contractor to make sure the field's safe for use. We're also responsible for quite a bit of natural turf maintenance. So all the natural turf, all the grass fields, in addition to the mowing, the grounds division is also responsible for fertilizing those fields on a regular basis. IPM treatments, so that would be any type of pest control treatment. The irrigation on all those fields, we have 3 irrigation systems in town that the grounds division is responsible for operating and maintaining. They turn them on in the spring, have to winterize them in the fall, make a lot of repairs to the heads and whatnot, and a lot of that work is done in-house. In addition to those tasks, natural turf maintenance would also include top dressing if needed, aeration, which is done on a monthly basis throughout the year, which basically takes the cores or the plugs to help relieve compaction and allow nutrients back into the soil. So it's very important for soil health, especially on a sports field that gets used a lot. The soil can get compacted. The grounds division, as I mentioned, responsibility for all the different park facilities and amenities. So all the different indoor structures, the bathrooms, maintaining the sinks, the toilets, painting the bathroom floors, all those things all fall under the grounds division. And lastly, they're responsible for safety inspections at all the park facilities, which those are done in accordance to the standards of the township's joint insurance fund. So every month, every sports field, all the park facilities and the playgrounds are inspected. There's a checklist. Any deficiencies are noted, logged into our work order system, and followed up on. All right, we'll move on to the buildings division now. Quite simply, the buildings division is responsible for maintenance and repair of all the township buildings, including all the systems in the township buildings. So that would be all the electrical, plumbing, HVAC. In addition, the buildings division is responsible for carpentry work or repair work, painting, janitorial work. They empty the recycling every day. They help oversee our janitorial contractor, setups of rooms for different events, and coordination of other repairs or projects that happen within the township buildings. And this is a list of most of the township buildings: town hall, the police department, health department, the engineering and DPW building. We provide assistance to the library with maintenance and repairs, the community center and teen center, the two OEM annexes, so the former Liberty Corner First Aid Squad and the former community service building on Stonehouse Road, the Brick Academy, and the Lions train station. So in addition to the maintenance and operation of the buildings division also has a responsibility for streetlight maintenance all throughout town. So these would be the streetlights, not the streetlights that are overhead on the wooden utility poles. Those are owned by the electric utility, JCP&L. But rather in the Hills and Spring Ridge developments, there are streetlights that are standalone. They're not on utility poles on the ground. Those are all owned by the township. In addition to those in those developments, we also have all the streetlights at the different township properties, the parking lots downtown, the complex here at Town Hall and the police station, Pleasant Valley Park. So the buildings division has to take care of all those streetlights. And it's not always just as simple as changing a bulb when one burns out. A lot of times, there's quite a bit of investigative or troubleshooting work that has to be done. A lot of underground wires get broken, so the buildings division sometimes has to spend a considerable amount of time looking for and repairing problems with the streetlights. Then we also get, on occasion, there'll be a vehicle accident, something gets knocked down, they have to be put back up. And then, just like the grounds division is responsible for a lot of inspections, so is the buildings division. They're responsible for inspection and record keeping on a lot of different components of the township buildings, one of which would be the emergency generators that we have at many of our facilities, some of which are permitted by New Jersey DEP because of their size, so there's a lot of additional record keeping that goes with that. The boilers at Town Hall, DPW, and the health department, they get inspected by the state every other year. The fuel pumps and the underground storage tanks for the gasoline and diesel fuel at DPW. Again, that's a pretty highly regulated thing, permitted by the DEP. So the buildings division is responsible for a lot of inspections, record keeping, and maintenance on the fuel pumps and underground storage tanks. They're responsible for coordinating fire inspections and mitigation of any violations found during those fire inspections at all the township facilities. Fire extinguishers need to get inspected by a third-party company every year, and they also need to get checked by our folks every month. Fire alarms also need to get tested every year. And of course, there's maintenance that goes along with those as needed. Elevator and chairlift inspections at the library, here at Town Hall. Another thing is backflow prevention. So a lot of backflow preventers on the water lines at the township facilities, they also are subject to yearly inspections and record keeping. As I mentioned earlier, we have a staff member who's indoor air quality certified. So this staff member is in the buildings division and responsible for any complaints from any employees or any other occupants at any of the township buildings. If they have a complaint about the air quality, we're responsible to quickly follow up, investigate, and mitigate any of those concerns if anything's found. And then lastly is the safety type of inspections. Just like the grounds division has to do the safety inspections on the fields and the park facilities and the playgrounds, Every month, the Buildings Division does a facility safety inspections of all the buildings. And annually, we're inspected by the Environmental Joint Insurance Fund at our DPW and other facilities in regards to anything that could have a potential environmental impact, like stormwater, the vehicle maintenance, the underground storage tanks, and that all the record keeping and inspections on those things falls to the Buildings Division, in addition to their regular maintenance duties. So that takes care of the 4 operational divisions, and the last division of DPW is our administrative services. So those are our folks in the office who are primarily responsible for, the first interaction with the public. So as part of that, we receive concerns or complaints from residents and other members of the public, about 1,500 or more every year. So almost all those complaints are logged into our work order system and assigned to the appropriate supervisor from one of the operational divisions to inspect and investigate and follow up on. The administrative division also is responsible for distribution of the Pill Hill permit cards, so residents can have access to Pill Hill. Another function is the safety coordinator and right to know. So the safety coordinator is one of our administrative folks. She is responsible for making sure that our employees in DPW and throughout the township stay up to date on any required safety trainings, making sure that all of our written safety programs and policies are up to date and correct and in place, and also responsible for dealing with any accidents or insurance type of incidents. So if we have a motor vehicle accident or a property damage accident, the safety coordinator is kind of the go-between between the township and insurance for those types of things. And she's also the right to know coordinator, which is basically inventorying and reporting all the chemicals that are at all of our facilities to the state. Administration is also responsible for the typical administrative purchasing functions. That's a big one. We do over 1,400 purchase orders every year to keep things moving in Public Works. We're also responsible for the fuel system management and billing, so not the actual physical infrastructure, but keeping track of which vehicles are getting fuel, how much fuel they're getting. That's a separate system. And what we mean by billing is we have shared service agreements with some other entities in neighboring townships to use our fuel pumps. So there's monthly billing that has to go out to those outside entities for that service. Responsible for preparation and management of the budget. We have 6 operating budgets and 4 capital budgets in DPW. So that is a pretty intensive responsibility all year long to make sure that we're tracking the budget, we're preparing for next year, making sure that all the expenses are within the budget. They're also responsible for the fixed asset or inventory of all the township fixed assets, so all the assets that the township owns, the vehicles, the equipment, certain pieces of furniture or buildings, all of those are tracked and inventoried, and administration is responsible for keeping that inventory, updating it as things go, making changes as needed. We also have a project coordinator who's responsible for project management. What that gentleman does is he takes a lot of the weight off of some of the operational folks to concentrate on specific projects. So it's time-consuming to call contractors, get people to come in, look at projects, get quotes, get the paperwork in, the purchase orders cut, deal with the invoicing. So we have a project coordinator who's primarily responsible for those types of work, which allows the operational folks to focus more on the day-to-day things they need to do. And lastly, we're responsible for recycling and clean communities reporting and record keeping. So the township receives from the state funds for recycling and clean communities every year. There are reporting requirements associated with both of those grant programs, and that's something we run through administrative services. And of course, we're here to provide support to other township departments, as needed. So now that we discussed all the different divisions and their responsibilities, we'll just take a look at some other duties of DPW as a whole. Township special event support, so events like Charter Day, National Night Out, the Mayor's Fall Festival. DPW helps with setup, cleanup during the event. We may participate in some of the events. Field of Honor, we assist Parks and Rec with setting that up. And some of the employee or volunteer events, again, we're the labor force. We help set up, take down for those events. DPW is also responsible for running the banner program. So those are the banners on the light poles at Town Hall and Pleasant Valley Park. Also the overhead banner across the street on South Finley Avenue. The DPW folks put up all the banners, take down all the banners, and maintain all the hardware and everything we need to be able to do that. Emergency response is another duty of DPW. It's a pretty important function. So the DPW is always prepared to respond to emergencies. Of course, most of the emergencies we respond to happen to be weather-related. This time of year, we're dealing with snow emergencies, maybe dealing with some coming up. We're also, during other times of the year, you have a thunderstorm that rolls through, you can have wind damage, tree damage, flooding, those types of emergencies DPW is prepared to respond to. 24/7, 365, we have people on call for those types of things. And the functions that we do in those types of emergencies, typically, we can assist with road closures, putting up barricades and cones, warning signs. We can assist with tree removal to open up roads. Flooding, we can check our drainage system to try to unclog or investigate any kind of flooding things and help alleviate that. And then, of course, the big one is the snow and ice removal and maintenance. We also have to include the township facilities in our emergency response. So if there's a power loss, we have to ensure that the generators are operating and fueled on a continuous basis to keep running. We also will open Town Hall, this room specifically, as a warming or cooling center if needed, if there's a power outage or other emergency where folks may have to leave their homes. So during all this, we're in coordination with the Township Office of Emergency Management, the County DPW, our police and fire departments. We have a good working relationship with all those folks, and we're all here for each other in emergency times. And then we also, through OEM, we also kind of work as a liaison to the utility companies, because oftentimes during the weather emergencies, it's the electric infrastructure is the most affected, and we try to work with the utility companies to get going and get power restored as quickly as possible, those types of events. Trees is another big thing that we got a lot of questions about. DPW is responsible for tree inspections and removal, not only on township properties, but from within the right-of-way. So what we encourage residents to do is, if you have an issue with a tree on township property or in the right-of-way, go ahead and contact us to report the issue. What we'll do is generate a work order. We'll have staff inspect the tree, and we may remove hazardous trees from the right-of-way. So basically, what that means is, if it's on a township property, we own the tree, we'll remove it if needed. But in the right-of-way, the township doesn't own any trees in the right-of-way. They do belong to the underlying property owner, but the township has the ability to remove hazardous trees if they're going to affect the right-of-way. So if they're going to pose an impact, a safety impact really, to the motoring public, to pedestrians on the sidewalk, that's when the township can come in and remove the tree. But we do inspect every tree on a case-by-case basis and make a determination as to whether or not it meets the criteria that we can take action or not. We may trim or prune trees in the right-of-way if needed. If there's a dead branch over the road, instead of taking the whole tree, we can go trim that or prune it. But another thing to note with regards to trees is the township cannot and does not remove trees from private property. Our other big responsibility is snow and ice removal. I often say it's one of the most visible things DPW does. We're responsible for snow and ice removal of those all 113 miles of township roads that we talked about, and 30 out of the 81 miles of sidewalk that have been designated as school priority sidewalks. We're also responsible for snow removal of the school parking lots in town, and the parking lots at the municipal facilities, the parks, and various paths and trails that we're responsible for also. So as part of snow and ice removal, there's basically two types of operations that are carried out. There's a salting operation and a plowing operation, and they could be carried out separately or kind of together, depending on the storm. So a salting operation, we would typically run for about 1 to 2 inches of snow or less. To do a salting operation, we will utilize township crews only. We'll provide treatment of all township roads, all facilities, the sidewalks at all the facilities, certain sidewalks throughout the town on the school priority routes, but not all of them necessarily, and the school parking lots. And typically, For the salting operation, it takes 3 to 4 hours to complete one round. And depending on the storm, it may require 1 or more rounds of salting. And during a plowing operation, it's typically done when there's 2 inches or more of snow that's forecasted. And if we are doing a plowing operation, we will always do a salting operation at the beginning and the end. So every storm, say we're predicted to get a foot of snow, we'll go out at the beginning when it first starts to snow and salt the road. And what that does is it helps create a brine on the road surface, which helps prevent the snow from bonding to the pavement, making it easier to remove to get down to bare asphalt at the end of the storm. So if we have 2 or more inches of snow on the road, we'll move to a plowing operation. In a plowing operation, we utilize all our township crews and outside contractors. We're responsible for plowing all township roads, the 30 miles of priority sidewalks, the school parking lots, and the parking lots and sidewalks at all of our facilities. And typically, for a plowing operation, it takes 4 to 6 hours after the snow has stopped falling to complete plowing operation. So that would mean basically if you have snow falling for 12 hours, not only will we be plowing for those 12 hours, but we'll also take 4 to 6 hours afterwards to get fully cleaned up. And something I guess to note here is that it doesn't always fall into one of these 2 categories, right? Every storm is different. There are a lot of different variables we have to take into account when it comes to snow and ice, some of which include the type of precipitation. So snow is a lot easier to melt than sleet or ice or freezing rain. The air temperature is important, but so is the surface temperature, the pavement temperature. That really dictates like how quickly the snow will start and how much it will accumulate. We also have to keep an eye on the weather forecast. We might approach things differently if we know that after the storm it's going to warm up well above freezing or if it's going to plummet way below freezing. And then some other variables to consider are the wind helps dry the roads out, the sun helps melt the snow, and the time of day, whether we're going to be going into the evening or we have to think about rush hour, people getting to work or getting to school. Those are all different things we have to consider when we're dealing with the winter weather. So even though it kind of is easy to break down into salting and plowing, it's usually a lot more complex than that. So as I mentioned, every storm is different, depending on the different types of precipitation we have and the other variables. What DPW does in the winter months is we monitor the weather constantly. We subscribe to a weather forecasting service. We receive updates on a daily basis. When they're predicting a snow event, those updates will come more frequently to help us make a better informed decision on what to do about the weather. Our crews are always ready, just like any other emergency, to respond whenever needed. But what we typically do is using those weather forecasts, looking at all the different variables, we typically try to schedule a start time for every storm. And what that does is it ensures that our crews are here, they can get here safely, but they're also here in town. And as soon as it starts to snow, as soon as anything happens, they're ready to respond. Because as we know, the weather forecasters, while they may be good, they're not always 100%. So a couple different issues that come up during snow removal. The first of which is mailboxes. Unfortunately, mailbox damage is one of those unavoidable consequences of snow removal. It happens everywhere, not just in Berners Township. If your mailbox is damaged during a snowstorm, we ask that you report the damage to DPW as soon as possible. And just like trees, we'll go out and inspect every mailbox. Unfortunately, the township does not reimburse residents for replacement of mailboxes. We will try to make temporary repairs or provide a new post or mailbox if possible, but we're not responsible for the ultimate repair. But what we try to do is make sure we do whatever we can to make sure that residents don't stop receiving their mail. So we may make a temporary repair, we may provide a temporary mailbox so that you can continue to receive your mail until you can get your mailbox fixed. I would encourage anybody who's experienced issues with mailbox damage or going to install a new mailbox to go online and find the U.S. Postal Service guidelines on mailbox installation and follow those when you're putting your mailbox in. Another issue we experience is getting plowed in. Again, just like mailboxes, it's unavoidable. It's not possible to prevent driveways from being plowed in during a snowstorm. What we do in Berners Township, every time we do a plow run, we plow curb to curb. We don't just do the centers to get the road open. We push all the way back to the curb every time we plow. And basically, that's done to, keep the road as wide as possible, provide for parking after the storm, help open up the drainage for after the storm, emergency vehicle access. And it's also done to keep the snow off the road in case we're going to get back-to-back or big storms. We've got to keep pushing that snow out to make room for what might be coming. So we have to plow a certain way, too. We have to plow in the direction of traffic. And you have to push the snow to the curb, which is always going to be to the right while the plow's plowing in the direction of traffic. So what'll happen is if you do shovel out the end of your driveway before we've done that final plow pass and gotten it back to the curb, not only the snow that's coming off the plow, but once the plow finds that hole in the snowbank, everything that's in front of the plow is going to dump into the driveway too. So there's a couple different things residents can do to help prevent that or help mitigate it. The first of which would be not to shovel the last 3 to 4 feet of your driveway until the storm is over. So that would be after the snow stopped, that 4 to 6 hours later, after the road's been plowed curb to curb and salt's been put down, you could shovel the last 3 to 4 feet. The other thing could be to do, like these two images depict here, would be to kind of clear an area out ahead of your driveway to allow all that snow that's in front of the plow a place to go and kind of minimize the amount that's going to be put into the driveway. A couple things that are going to help us to help you during snow removal. First of which would be to follow the on-street parking prohibition. So every time that there's snow on the road in Berners Township, on-street parking is prohibited. And it's important because cars parked on the street impede our ability to effectively, efficiently, and safely perform our snow removal function. It also leaves a concern after the storm. If we have to plow around cars, there's snow banks, there's piles in the road. If we're going to have freezing temperatures, those could freeze and become an obstruction or hazard later on. And then also, something you can do is not deposit any snow in the roadway. So shoveling your sidewalk or your driveway, please do not deposit snow in the road. That's also prohibited here in Berners Township. And the negative impact on that is going to be much like if snow is left in the road from a parked car. If we're done after the storm, if folks shovel their snow into the road, it could freeze on the road and cause a hazard. So please point your snow blowers away from the road. Speak to your plow guys and ask them not to leave any snow in the road. Next item would be fire hydrants. If you have a fire hydrant near your house, it's not something that the township maintains. We simply don't have the resources to go out and shovel every fire hydrant in town. There are almost 1,000 of them. We do this on fire hydrants that are on township property. You can go out and clear a 3-foot diameter around the fire hydrant, and that would just be simply to help you, your neighbors, and the fire departments if the fire hydrants are needed after a snowstorm. Another thing is to keep note of is storm drains. As I mentioned, we plow curb to curb to help with drainage. If you have a storm drain in front of your house and it's covered in snow, you can feel free to go out and remove the snow, or also feel free to call us and let us know, and we'll send a crew out, in the days following the storm to make sure those are opened up so that when the snow does melt, we're not going to have a drainage problem anywhere. And the final thing is while it's snowing, stay off the roads. The less traffic on the roads, the better, easier it is to remove the snow. So help us get it done quicker, and please stay off the roads during a storm. And that basically wraps up the snow removal topics. Next, we'll move on to trash, recycling, and disposal. So here in Berners Township, the township does not provide curbside trash collection. The collection is the responsibility of each resident. So the residents have the option to contract with one of several different trash haulers to get their weekly garbage picked up. Recycling, on the other hand, is provided by the township through shared services contract with Somerset County, and that's the bi-weekly recycling pickup. That's provided by Somerset County. So if you have an issue with recycling, feel free to contact us, but you can also reach out to Somerset County directly. What the township does provide, as I mentioned earlier, is the Pill Hill Recycling Center, which we'll discuss on the next slide. So the Pill Hill Recycling Center is open to residential property owners of Berners Township. In order to use the facility, you must have a permit, which you can obtain at DPW, so you can feel free to stop in or call during our business hours. Pill Hill is open weekends year-round, Certain busier cleanup months, it's open Saturdays and Sundays, but it is open every Saturday all throughout the year. And what Pill Hill does is it provides the ability for residents to dispose of items that are not collected curbside by either trash or recycling pickup. So some of the items that we accept at Pill Hill are bulky waste, like to be furniture or other large items that don't fit in a trash can, metal, appliances, electronics, cardboard and paper, tires, there is a fee to dispose of tires though, and vegetative waste, branches, leaves, and yard trimmings. Some things that we do not accept at Pill Hill are grass clippings, roofing or some other construction materials, paint, any other fluids or chemicals, and we also don't accept tree stumps. So for more information, you can visit the website at the bottom of the slide or call the DPW anytime for information on Pill Hill. And finally, a quick touch on utilities. So the following utilities on this page in Berners Township are privately owned or separate entities from Public Works. So if you have public water in Berners Township, you're serviced by New Jersey American Water. The whole township serviced by Jersey Central Power and Light for electric and PSE&G for gas. If you live in the Hills part of town, your public sewer is provided by the Environmental Disposal Corporation. But if you live outside the hills and have public sewer, it's provided by the Berners Township Sewage Authority. So what we do is encourage residents, if you're having an issue with one of these utility providers, is to contact them directly. However, if you do see a utility issue that's affecting the roadway or a safety hazard, you can feel free to contact Public Works or call 911 after hours or if it's an emergency. And a couple examples of that would be if you notice a water main break or a tree on the wires. And lastly, another way to get in touch with us, in addition to our contact information, which will be on the next slide, is on the Berners Township website. You can use the report a concern function. And what that'll do is take your concern and input it directly into our work order program where it gets assigned to the appropriate staff to follow up. What we do ask that you provide at least is your contact information, the location, and as much detail as possible on whatever the issue might be. So that being said, that about wraps up my presentation. Our contact information is here on this slide. We're located at 277 South Maple Avenue on the second floor. That's at the engineering building. Our phone number and email and website are all here. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Yeah.